you're prepared to break the silence, I'll be out in the sunshine, running beside the lions. I've been feeling down, but I've been looking up, afraid to fall. God, I've been so down, can you pick me up? Don't let me fall. Can you show me how to fix this mess? I am down and on my knees and I may fall as I'm so close to the edge.
How are we all, and welcome back to Turf Moor House TV. Thank you if you are still with us. It's a bit slow in the off-season, isn't it, when there's not really much to talk about. However, being a Burnley fan, we're not used to actually making any signings prior to it being transfer deadline day, and even then we start squirming with sweaty palms. However, we have made our second signing of the season. There is going to be another video coming up regarding Scott Twan. It's just a person that I had in mind for the MK Dons fan to come on. Cannot make it. I was going to do this all in one, but it's fine. Not a problem. We will get that sorted, and they can tell us a bit about Scott Twan when they are free. But we are here to speak about Vincent Kompanys' second addition to the Burnley squad. And as you saw there and can see from the thumbnail, that is young 22-year-old Luke Mcnally, who joins us from Oxford United. Now, I do have an Oxford fan here with us, Mark, who's going to give us a bit of an insight to Luke and how he got on as well. I mean, he was only at Oxford for one season, but we will get a lowdown on him. Also, just remember, if you are new around here, please do smash the subscribe button, hit that notification bell if you haven't already, and yeah, share, like this video if possible. Again, we are on all social media, and this is where you can find us. So without further ado, let's welcome Mark. How are you doing, mate? How are you?
Well, I'm okay. A bit disappointed that we lost Luke, but such is life. Thank you for the money.
I'm sure it'll be well spent.
How much was it, by the way? I keep seeing different reports. What do you know?
I think reportedly the offer that we've given up front is 1.6 million, but it reaches over 2 million with the add-ons and bonuses.
Yeah. I've heard between 1.6 and 2 million, so that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, looking at it as a Burnley fan, this is strange for us. As I said earlier, we're not used to this sort of new era that we've got. We've broke the mould we've consecutively throughout our history had British managers. And now we've, employed Vincent Kompanys, a foreign descent, with a new era, a new outlook. Buy young, hope that they progress, sell high, and hopefully that stands us in good stead for the future. So obviously players like Luke, as you say, Scott Twan, who we signed from MK Dons, both players who, to be honest, was in the EFL League One Team of the Year last season. So it's not to be sniffed at. First and foremost, tell us a bit about yourself. Obviously, how long you've been an Oxford United supporter, and a bit of a background of Mark.
Yeah, so I had my formative years in Oxfordshire. I don't live in Oxfordshire now. I live down on the south coast in Poole in Dorset. But I'm a season ticket holder up at the Kazam. So I go up pretty much every home game. Occasionally, sometimes business dictates that I can't actually make it to a game. But I'll be at most games, certainly all of those that I can. Followed them since the 1980s, just before Jim Smith came in. So we were just a third division club, not really going anywhere. Jim Smith came in, turned the club around, pulled us up into the first division, known as the Premier League today. We had 3 seasons up there and then got relegated, dropped down through the Football League and out the back door into the conference. Those were some dark years. I mean, most of us thought a big club like Oxford, as we were relatively terms, certainly going into the non-league, would be straight back up. How wrong we were. It took a couple of seasons. I lost a best friend along the way and lost a little bit of the love for going to Oxford without him.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, at that time, I actually got involved with my local non-league side, and I ended up as commercial director at Pooltown Football Club. I had an involvement with Charlie Austin, who was a player there at the time and ended up on Burnley's books. And I did that for a number of years. We got up to the Conference South, and the commitment became too much. I mean, it was just a part-time labourer love for me. But every time we needed money to upgrade the ground, for example, for ground grading requirements to try and seek promotion, all the directors would turn to me and say, well, where are you going to find it? And we're talking big sums for that kind of level. And I couldn't do it anymore. I work full time. I travel a lot internationally. I said, look, I have to step aside, let someone else do it. So I went back to watching Oxford United, where I could turn up at just before 3 o'clock and go home at 5 o'clock and switch off in between until the next home game. And that's the difference between being a fan and being involved with a football club.
It is. I suppose it's a massive difference as well. Obviously, you've lived that dream of everybody wants to sort of have, an involvement with the club, know the ins and outs, go into these rooms that you don't really get to see, the people you speak to. But as you said rightly there, it's a bit of a different situation when you go from, being given these big, major decisions to make, to being a fan, talking to your mates in the pub about it, going, oh, I wish they'd do this, I wish they'd do that. There's a humongous difference. I mean, probably...
I see the Luke Mcnally deal in a different light, because a lot of fans will say, oh, why couldn't we keep him? Let's push to get in the Championship ourselves. But then again, 1.6 million now, potential for 2 million, that makes a big difference to Oxford United at our level. And the same even at Pooltown, selling Charlie Austin to Swindon and the sell-on clause when he went to Burnley. That made a huge difference. In fact, I could tell you the money from the sell-on clause that when he went to Burnley for Pooltown meant that they were able to upgrade the ground at that time that allowed them to get promotion after having been champions for the 3rd consecutive time and 2 times not being allowed to be promoted because the ground didn't meet the required gradings. So, clubs, it's all right for fans to say, well, where's the direction of the board? Why aren't they putting more money in? At the end of the day, the money's got to come from somewhere. And if you have to sell a player to ultimately improve the club, it's been good business for Oxford. The lad played 28 times. And if you want to calculate that over 2 million, that's 70,000 an appearance. I think we did all right there.
I'd say so.
We signed him from an undisclosed fee from St Patrick's Athletic in Dublin. I don't think it would have been much, but they would have had a sell-on clause. So,
yeah, I think they do. Yeah.
Good luck to them. They'll be getting a slice of the pie, and that'll probably make a big difference to them. But that's the way the world goes around.
It is. A couple of comments have come in as well. Hussam is in the chat. He says, guess who's here? Well, as you say, I already know it's you. Hussam is in the house. Dan Mack, or Danny Collins, as it says there, says, a lot of the ins and outs, never thought I'd look forward to the Championship more than the Prem. Oh, I know, tell me about it. No VAR, ball hits the back of the net, you can celebrate. Oh, I'm looking forward to all of that. Ryan's in, who runs Proud Terriers, Huddersfield channel as well, Ryan Mather TV. Good evening, Dan. Good evening to yourself, Ryan. And the Judas that is Anthony Herbert. He is Southampton, Arsenal, Bristol. I think any team that plays in red, to be honest. But hope you're well, Anthony. And he knows it's only in jest. So yeah, first and foremost, obviously, I know the title of this is regarding Luke Mcnally or Luke Mcnally, however it's pronounced. But yeah, tell us about, obviously, as you said there, you were a commercial director and at Pooltown for a number of years. How did the Charlie Austin situation come about with yourself?
Right, well, Charlie fell into the laps at Pooltown. His father and grandfather, there's Charlie. That's a Pooltown picture as well. I was at that game. Charlie, his parents ran a bricklaying business, pretty big bricklaying business, and they were based at the time in Hungerford. And Charlie had been playing for Hungerford, which was Step 5 non-league at the time. And they moved down to Bournemouth, to a big place down here. And he was looking for a club of a similar level. Literally knocked on the door at Pooltown, said, "Can I play for you?" And they said, "Well, let's have a look. Come along. We'll give you a trial." And straight away, could see there was something about the lad. Now, prior to Hungerford, he had been on the books at Reading. He had played in the academy there, and Reading had released him. And he thought that was the end of his career. I mean, that often happens, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
But those with heart go out, they try again, and they get another chance. And that's exactly what happened with Charlie. He banged in goals for fun for us. I think it was 46 games he ended up playing. So it was a season and a half, 46 goals in that time. Now, it didn't work out exactly as one a game. There were occasions where he would get 3 or more in a game and then go on a drought of 2 games, 3 games not scoring. But it was great fun. And we were winning games at that time. I mean, there were 9s, 10s, 11s that we were scoring. It was great to watch. It was a lot of fun being a Pooltown fan in those days. Of course, Charlie caught the attention of AFC Bournemouth. Right on the doorstep. AFC Bournemouth being the bigger club around, they can take whoever they want, whenever they want.
Yeah.
But at that time, they had a transfer embargo. So they couldn't sign Charlie. They said, let him come and train with us and he can play for you. So he was still registered to Pooltown. He trained with AFC Bournemouth and he just stepped up another notch. We could see it in his fitness. We had a pre-season friendly against AFC Bournemouth and beat them 3-0. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
And at that time, he caught the attention of Swindon Town. Chairman at the time was Andrew Fitton. He had been involved with Hungerford, so he knew Charlie from those days. He told Danny Wilson, go down, have a look. We were aware, the board of directors, Danny Wilson was coming down to this game. Watched Charlie. Afterwards, went back up to Swindon, didn't say anything on the night. Next day or two, we got a communication from Andrew Fitton saying, we like the lad, we'll take him. He said, well, what do you mean you'll take him? Oh, we'll take him off your hands. He said, no, you won't. He's under contract. If you want him, you'll have to pay. And his response, which I thought was pretty arrogant, was, well, we wouldn't expect to pay a fee for a club of your level. We were Step 5 non-league. And I'm an Oxford United fan. How do you think I felt about that with Swindon, who are our local rivals? So I was the one on the board saying, well, we don't want him to go to Swindon anyway. Well, they made another derisory offer of £5,000, which they thought was breaking the bank. And we were not inclined to take it. But they offered a bunch of add-ons, which were a risk that if Charlie never made it, we'd never see another penny. I was still against the deal. His family came to us and said, look, we'll give you another £5,000 if you let him have his chance, which I thought was decent of the family to want to see the lad have the best opportunity. They asked us to keep it confidential, but I know that Charlie found this out, so he's well aware. I'm not breaking any confidences here. So we ended up getting £10,000 and Charlie was gone. He played in the reserves at Swindon a couple of times, scored. Now, I can tell you, contrary to popular rumours, Charlie is not a Swindon Town fan. Swindon fans thought he was, but I know Charlie supports Liverpool. I know that because I've asked him direct and straight. He had no feelings for Swindon Town. He played in the reserves a couple of times, scored some goals. The fans were clamouring for him to get into the first team. He never looked back. He made his debut at Norwich, went on to score plenty of goals for Swindon, played for them in the playoff final. They didn't make it. It was against Millwall, as I recall. There was a bobble. Charlie would have buried that. I know he would have done, but there was a bobble on the pitch. Ball didn't go in. Swindon Town didn't get promoted. Millwall did. Probably the only time I've ever sat in with the Swindon fans and supported Swindon. But that's another story. And then he was sold on to you guys. I'm glad to say that Poole Town had a sell-on clause from Swindon. And in total, Poole Town made the best part of £200,000 out of the Charlie Austin deal. And there was that hesitancy. Do we accept this £5,000 deal or not? Is that the end of what we'll ever see? And so glad we did. That £200,000 was put into an account and we waited until we needed to spend it on ground upgrades, and it allowed us to get out of the Wessex League and into the Southern League. We won the Southern League, got into the Southern Premier League, got out of the Southern Premier League into the Conference South. Had to do other upgrades along the way. The Charlie money was all spent long before, but I don't think Poole Town would be where they are today if it wasn't for that deal. They would probably be Southern League First Division, not Southern Premier at the moment, and they've got a good chance of getting back into the Conference South, I would say, next season.
Wow, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, it's not because you don't, as I say, as a fan, when a player is linked to your club, all you think is, right, it's just a bit of interest. You don't think of, as you say, these clubs that are driving a hard bargain, saying, well, we don't, we think we don't even owe you a pittance sort of thing. And it's derogatory, it's wrong. I mean, we've seen it recently, Watford poaching Rob Edwards from Forest Green Rovers as though, no compensation package, no nothing, just right, I'm off. And things like that happen, and I don't think it's right. And I think that's another reason why there's the big, massive argument in football that money should still get filtered down the pyramid, a lot more money than already is.
Well, it also pains me to see players let their contract run down and go on a free. That's to line their own pockets.
I mean, the only person I can think of who last really showed some decorum to that sense was probably Harry Maguire. He knew he was linked with a move away from Leicester, but he still went and signed a new contract knowing it would benefit the club.
Yep. At Oxford, we're losing a player this season, Mark Sykes, another Irish player that we plucked from obscurity, and he's going to Bristol City on a free, and that's a real shame. Why couldn't he have signed a 1-year deal? Maybe the club could have been a bit more proactive and had an agreement about, that he would share in a sell-on fee, but it's history. He's going. He'll get a nice wage at Bristol City. Oxford United get nothing for it. But there you go. That's life. Some you win, some you lose.
It's difficult. I suppose it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, it's like I say to a lot of people that, growing up in the 90s when I was just sort of getting used to football, I was seeing Burnley playing teams like Boston United and, as yourselves, Oxford, Wrexham, all these teams that have sort of now Barnet even, all these teams that have just sort of gone a bit wayside. I mean, Notts County, they're also, one of the oldest teams, if not the oldest. So, it's amazing how you see these clubs sort of not nosedive as such. I mean, Notts County probably is their own fault, with the Sol Campbell, the Sven and that ordeal. They try to throw money everywhere for where they were. And sometimes that can bite you in the backside, as we've seen with Derby. But yeah, it's as you said earlier, 1.6 million potentially rising to 2 million for a 22-year-old centre back who, as you say, he's only had one season at Oxford, but what a fantastic season it was.
Yeah. So first time I saw Luke, Oxford came down last season for a pre-season break away from the area. They were hoping to go to Spain, and then coronavirus prevented the travels. So Oxford came down to Wimborne Town, which is just north of Poole here. It's local rival for Poole Town. They've got a new ground, a nice setup there. And they were training in the morning at Wimborne on the pitch, and then the afternoons they were doing beach training and so on in Bournemouth. And they were down for a week, and Luke Mcnally came along with them on that particular trip. And I remember it because he's tall. He's 6'4", so he stands a few inches above most people, myself included. And it was after that training session, we were saying, who is that? Who's that tall lad, that young lad? You know, because he was relatively young compared to a number of other members of the squad. And after the training session was over, and it was the night England were playing in the Euros, and I remember them all disappearing off back to the hotel to go and watch the England game together. And they posed for some photographs outside. And Luke was having a chat with my daughter and got a couple of photos and so on. It's the first time we'd seen him. And then he didn't really break into the team immediately. He came in almost by default. There were injuries, people out. So Luke came in.
Didn't he have a bit of a knock when he first joined you as well? I think he had some sort of like hip injury when he first joined.
Yeah, but that was prior to the season. So he had to go through a period of not playing and rehabilitation. And then it was that pre-season, which was the first time we really saw him. Yeah, unless you'd been, well, in fact, no, you wouldn't have been able to, because games were behind closed doors. Training sessions were all behind closed doors because of COVID. And even that training session when they were down at Wimborne was supposedly behind closed doors, but they reached the protocols a little bit to kind of say thank you to the fans that turned up to support them. So that was really the first time we saw him training with the squad. And then an appearance or two here and there in the early part of the season to fill in. And it wasn't really until about halfway through the season where he got in and stayed in and got better and better each game. And you've got yourself a great little player there. He was confident. He was confident of stopping the biggest and the best that came up against him. And here's the nice thing. He'll have a little break from the back. And the midfield will think, well, he won't go too far. And he'll go through the midfield. And the defenders will think, well, he'll pass the ball soon. But he'll keep going and he'll have a shot. And I think he scored 4 goals for us. So he'll go up for the set place, being a big lad as well.
Yeah, of course.
That's the way we did it at Oxford. How Vincent will do it, I don't know. But we get the big centre-backs to go up for the set plays, the corners, trying to head it on or to someone else or have a header at goal. So he'll go up for those. We would usually put cover in at the back if the backs were going forward. We had a routine. Someone would fill in and cover the place for them. And that's become a theme at Oxford. So whoever replaces Luke, it'll be interesting to see if we're going to do the same thing. I mean, we had a couple of players before Luke. Yeah, he ultimately ended up filling the boots of Rob Atkinson. And Rob Atkinson went from us to Bristol City, made 29 appearances for them in the Championship last season. He did exactly the same from the same position. Also went upfield and would have a shot. And prior to that was Rob Dickey. And Rob Dickey's had
I remember Rob Dickey. Yeah,
he's had a couple of seasons at QPR and scored a couple of goals for them in the Championship. So it seems whoever gets that right centre back position at Oxford United, they're destined to go on to the Championship and play in the Championship. Hopefully, whoever fills his boots will be playing in the Championship for Oxford. There's my prediction. Fingers crossed.
I hope so. I read that obviously, I checked Oxford's Twitter page afterwards, and Carl Robinson just, sang his praises. He's saying, that for a 22-year-old lad, he said his goodbyes and he went round every single member of staff, made sure that he said bye. And I think he had a little dig at a player that sort of may have potentially spat his dummy out and just left once without saying anything. People were saying in the chat, yeah, at least he said goodbye. I can't remember who it was.
Okay.
But there was somebody in the chat, there was people in the comments saying about that. And also, he's been described as an absolute machine by fellow defender Sam Long.
Sam, I think that was on his debut, that comment. Yeah. In his debut, let's call it a non-competitive debut. We usually play Oxford City in our pre-season, and it's quite often one of the first games. So Luke Mcnally played against Oxford City, and he impressed Sam Long enough to make that comment. And I think it's valid. It stands. The lad's going to be 23 in September, and I hope he goes on to great things for you, because no doubt we've got a sell-on clause. So when you sell him for several million, however long that will be, I would hope that we'll get a slice of that as well.
I'm sure you will. Somebody in the chat has said, yeah, they think it was Sykes that spat his dummy out.
Sykes, well, he's the one that I was alluding to, let his contract run down and is leaving the club. And it's a real shame, because he was loved by the fans. And yeah, he's just walked off and taken care of number one.
That's it. Sometimes these players do that, don't they? They think about themselves and they don't think about what they're leaving behind. And then if it all goes pear-shaped, what could have been, and you'd have had somewhere to go back to. It's like if you're successful in a job and you say, "Oh, sorry, I'm leaving to go here." If you've done really well in that job, sometimes they'll say, "Listen, if it doesn't work out or you don't like it, there's always a position here for you."
Yeah.
And I'm sure if Sykes is ever passing through Oxford, I don't think it'll be anytime soon. Put it.
No, it's sad, because I think there is this togetherness at Oxford now under Carl Robinson, that the team is like a family, and if it's true that Sykes has left that way, that's very disappointing.
Yeah,
he was one of the family.
It's hard, isn't it? It's hard, especially when there's young fans that are probably still learning about. I mean, we lost Nick Pope. My missus is not so much massive on football, but she said, "Oh, I love Nick Pope. I love everything about him. He's saved Burnley's arse time and time again." She's yet to have those feelings like we have. The losing, falling in love with a lone player. She's still to feel that. Losing Nick Pope for her. She even were crying at the thank you video, and I'm like, yeah, this is all to come. This is all a learning curve. It's a transfer merry-go-round. You'll get the hang of it.
No, don't come and steal Jack Stevens from us then. Who have you got in goal next season?
I think it'll be Wayne Hennessy that starts, although we are apparently looking at Originate Muric from Manchester City.
Okay.
So the only player that we have looked at, I think, from not further down the pyramid, but from the leagues below, is Mark Cooper at Plymouth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, again, that's probably, another one alongside Scott Twan and Luke that made the team of the year. Do you think it was justified that Luke made that as well last year?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do. I do. Certainly the performances in the last 10 games, he was solid.
And what do you think Burnley are getting? As you say, he's got 4 goals to his name, 28 appearances. He's represented the Republic of Ireland under-19s. Obviously, that were once, but that were in 2017. Do you think he can go on to make the full Ireland squad at some point?
I do. And again, a couple of players at Oxford in their time with Oxford and having moved on elsewhere have also done that. Gavin White was one. He's not on our books now. He's with Cardiff, but he's been on loan with us a lot of that time that he's been with Cardiff, and he's still getting in the Irish side. Mark Sykes was there There was some thoughts about Joel Cooper, although he's gone back to Ireland now. And now we got Kieran Brown, who was released by Cardiff. He was on loan to us last season, and we've signed Kieran. And it was actually the same day it was announced about Luke. So I'm sure there was a little bit of a domino effect there, that there would have been.
Because he did play for you before, didn't he, Kieran?
He did,
yeah.
And he's done very well. He looks very good. I like him. I'm glad that we've signed him. But I'm sure that the two went hand in hand, knowing that we would get the money from the sale of Luke, perhaps allowed us to commit to the wages of Kieran Brown, which, having dropped out of the Championship, are probably a little bit higher than we're perhaps used to. Maybe he's taken a cut. I don't know. I'm not party to that information.
No, it's strange because the last, as I say, Scott Twan signed and then Luke Mcnally signed. And when you've watched the videos of them coming in, I always thought it was strange when you see the likes of Vincent Kompanys now managing Burnley Football Club, something I never thought I'd see. You've got Gerrard in the Premier League, Lampard elsewhere. Obviously, Rooney's just lost his job. But then I was looking at the players coming in and the videos, and you've got Scott Twan walking through with, with a former player as an agent. Luke Mcnally walked through the door with Willow Flood as his agent, and you're just like, these are players that you used to watch in the Championship or you'd be facing, and it's strange because you don't really hear about those players that go into the scouting system.
Yeah, well, we weren't far off the playoffs at the end of last season. We actually got more points than we did the season before. We were in the playoffs 2 seasons previous and failed to get out and get into the Championship. So we've been kind of knocking on the door. I thought in January that we were in a good enough position that probably we would make the playoffs. And I felt that would be our season, that we would get up. And if we had, maybe we would have kept Luke, because he would have been playing in the Championship. It's the devil, You've heard Carl say good things about him. Most of the players have a lot of respect for Carl. There's the draw of going to Burnley and playing for Vincent Kompany, but it wouldn't have necessarily, had we been in the Championship, been seen as a big step up. And that's not meant to be disrespect. I put my hand up. Burnley's a bigger club than Oxford United. You've got a bigger ground. You've got a bigger support. But we could have potentially both been Championship clubs. So he might have stayed. And I'd love to have seen another season from him. I really would. But coming from the side of having been involved with a football club, money makes the world go round.
It does. It certainly does. Anthony's coming with a comment saying, Dan, where do you think Burnley will finish? Well, I'm not going to give that too much away because I'm going to put that in a video and predict the Championship and then come back to it at the end of the season. I was going to come back to my prediction from the Premiership, but it was the only 3 I got right were City winning the league and Watford and Norwich to drop. That was pretty much it. So it'd have been a bit silly to do it. Chris is in. He says, who's that ugly bugger in yellow? And then if Mark was more laid back, he'd be a Reading fan.
Is that Chris? It is Chris who said
that. It is Chris, yeah.
Right. Beers are on you, Chris.
Dan Mack has said as well, do you think Kompany would have signed the same hungry youngsters as Dash? I mean, I'll ask you that because you'll have a certain outlook on football, being further up the sort of like the food chain within a club. If you can see when Sean Dash was manager that he had a certain way of playing, he'd always go for sort of people that had that experience, but yet it was very difficult to sort of move them on because they were already at the arse end of the career. So do you think that Dash would have signed younger players, or do you think it is more to the point, as you said, with Luke and what happened with the playoffs, that the Kompany pull is sort of a big thing?
that's hard to say. Now, what I would say, as let's call this an independent, I'm not a Burnley fan. I was shocked when Dyche was pushed out of the club,
Yeah, same.
and I thought, then, is that a mistake? I mean, you never know at the time, right? Had you stayed up, everyone would have said, yeah, it was the right thing to do. It was time, but you didn't. You went down. Now, if Sean Dyche hadn't gone, would you have gone down? That's a question again none of us can answer right now. So you potentially would have been a Premier League club this coming season rather than a Championship club. So Sean Dyche as a Premier League manager would attract almost any player that he wants to attract because it's the Premier League.
Yeah.
Sean Dyche in the Championship would attract players from the lower levels of the EFL, I'm sure. With us not having gone up, I'm sure it probably would have still been a lure for Luke, in respect of most clubs who drop out of the Premier League have a good chance of at least being in the playoffs to get back up the next season. And if you don't do it that first season, it could go the other way. And, we got plenty of those clubs that have knocked around with us in the third level, League One, the likes of Sunderland, and we've had Blackburn there and Wigan and, other clubs who've all played at the top and dropped down, Sheffield Wednesday even. So you have that golden moment to try and get back up. I think you've got a great manager. And he's not finished in the recruitment yet. And I think you've got a good chance of being thereabouts and getting back up. Whether you will or you won't, I don't know. I was never allowed to bet when I was a director of a football club, and that was a good thing. Betting on football is a mug's game. you know that.
Definitely.
And these days I play the free predictors. The Super Six, for example.
Yeah.
How often do you get them scores right? And
not often.
Always a shock in there, a banker home win, and they go and lose 3-0. How does that happen?
Exactly.
And here's another little insight from a time with a football club. The fans never really know what's going on within the players' circle. It could be that someone's got family issues. Maybe there's a relative ill or recently passed away, and that can affect a player. And if you have that affecting 2 or 3 of your players who are not at 100% potential, but at, say, 80%, it really affects the overall balance of the team. And as a director, I knew when a player had an issue that fans didn't know about, that would affect his game. And then it was sad when you'd see some criticism on the forum, but people didn't know what was going on.
No.
So just a little insight for you from seeing it from both sides. So you'll never see me criticizing the Oxford players publicly. And I certainly wouldn't criticize them during a game as well. That's the next thing, getting on a player's back. How do you think that's going to help turn around a situation if you're losing, getting on a player's back?
It makes or breaks people, doesn't it? And obviously, when you don't know what's going to come, whether you are going to make that person or break that person, it's just better to obviously probably keep stum about, how everything is. Do you think now it's more positive as well that there's a lot more things being done for mental health within football?
Yes, I think it is. I know that Oxford have focused on that big time, bringing in psychologists, working with the players. Yes. When you go down the levels, though, it's not there. I mean, at non-league level, maybe they could sound out to us, the directors, who are in some cases like father figures to some of the players. That's about where it ended. I could tell you at the Step 5 non-league, there's no psychologists.
No, I bet. As Chris says there, he says, you'll never get a beer out of Dan, by the way, tight as the proverbial duck's rear end.
I'm not sure I ever got one out of Chris.
No. To be fair, he does say that anytime, mate.
Yeah, I saw it.
Always have one ready for you. Phil says as well in the chat, he says, still think Dash's time was done at Burnley. Everything went stale. Should have been earlier, though. I see, I've got my sort of thoughts on it, where I've got for and against. I think, yes, was it the right time? Yes and no, because if you were going to do it straight after the Norwich game. You know, do it the day after the Norwich game, after the Norwich loss. Don't do it on the Friday the week after, when he's about to debrief his squad on the next game. That for me was a bit of a weird timing situation. However, as we saw with Arsene Wenger at Arsenal, some managers, even though they've had that bulk of success, it can just go stale. It doesn't work anymore. Things need to change. You know, the league adapts. You know, the quality of player is getting better. And if you've got the same squad trying to fight season in, season out, and no matter how many seasons you call them, seasoned pros, experienced players, you know, giving them a tagline doesn't change the fact that they are getting older. These players, when Dash left, were coming out and speaking about the one word you could hear banded around Turf Moor every match day, whether at home or away, was freedom. And the players had a bit more, as I say, freedom to showcase what they was about, instead of Dash going, no, you need to hold back on that. I want you to be doing this. I want you to be doing that. You know, we're seeing more stuff on the training ground now. You know, Dash was one of those, as I said, one of those dying breeds of old style managers, a bit like Stan Turner was, you know, when he sort of wasn't just the manager of Burnley Football Club, but he sort of came in and would tell the chairman, no, I need that doing, I need this doing. And I thought Dash was like that, probably due to the fact that he had, you know, a bit of a grounding under, what were he called at Forest? Brian Clough. So with having that bit of a grounding, you'd think, you know, maybe that's what he's tried to utilise. And in modern day football, it's not going to work. But it's, you know, it was a sad time. I do think he deserved more than just, you know, say bye to the players and off you pop. I thought he at least deserved what Stan Turner got, which was like a lap of honour after a game or something like that. And, you know, it's just going to be one of those situations. We'll look back with fond memories. He'll always be seen as a legend for everything he did. And I just think that a lot more credit should have been put on his name than the people going, oh, it went stale, it got boring. It was that boring football that got us European football. So, you know, sometimes people like to bite the hand that feeds them, don't they? Sometimes. So Dan Mack says he has a lot more connections, not putting Dash down, but I was very shocked Dash was pushed out. But every team needs a new kick up the arse. Yeah. And we at Burnley obviously are feeling that. He also adds, annoys me more when Saturday and Sunday teams take a knee, yet some teams don't. Well, that's a whole different matter. That is a whole different matter. So yeah, obviously sad to lose Luke then, but obviously with Kieran coming back, are very much like for like for you.
Well, Kieran's he has got more experience. Let me go back and relate this to a Charlie Austin story. I actually told Oxford about Charlie Austin and that they should sign him, and their response to me was, well, maybe the lad needs to go and get some time at a slightly higher level. Never even looked at him. And the chairman got to hear about that a couple of years later when you signed him from Swindon Town. The chairman heard about that, and that's how I ended up connected with him, Kelvin Thomas, who's now at Northampton Town. And he wanted to know who I'd spoken to at the club and what response I got. And it was a former player legend. I'm not going to name him now. And I didn't tell Kelvin who it was. I said, you know, there's no point in recriminations. It happened, you know.
Yeah.
It's gone. But at the time, I was at an Oxford game and I was talking to my mates about this player, Charlie Austin, who was playing for Poole Town. We had James Constable playing for us at the time.
Yeah.
And they said, is he as good as Bino? And I said, honestly, no, but he has the potential to be better. And I stand by that. Bino's a good friend of mine. And Charlie Austin played in the Premier League. Bino had a great playing career, didn't play in the Premier League, scored plenty of goals. But Charlie Austin went on to have a career at a higher level than James Constable. So I was right in my convictions then. Luke Mcnally, he has the potential. So with the right guidance, the right training, the right coaching, you've got a diamond.
Brilliant.
So he's not there yet.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have hurt him to have had another season with us. So if he's not going to get into your first team, lend him back to us.
By all means, if I was there, I would lend him back in a heartbeat if he wasn't getting first team football. As you say, he's going to have the likes of Kompany, who's probably one of the best, captains of the modern Premier League era. That's probably going to have been a pull. The fact of being a defender, not just a captain, but a defender, in the similar position, would he like to mould that? The fact that, with Nathan Collins, he's probably our next best defender, and again, could potentially be an Irish teammate, in the future, as well as not just at club level. So how far do you see his sort of development going? Obviously, you said with Charlie Austin, you could see that, the sky was the limit. Can you see sort of similar things for Luke?
Yeah, he'll play in the Premier League. He'll play for Ireland International. Whether he'll play in the Premier League with Burnley or whether you'll sell him, I don't know. Haven't got that crystal ball.
No.
But Luke will play in the Premier League. You'd like that to be with Burnley. So if you can get up in one season, he'll be playing in the Premier League, not in the coming season, but the season after.
No, I'm happy to hear that. Obviously, Oxford fans were sending their well wishes and wishing him well to have a long and successful career. Same goes with, as you said, with Charlie Austin. Obviously, the news came that he's signed for Brisbane Roar in Australia.
I didn't know that. I wondered where he was going to go. I wondered if he might look to go back to Swindon.
I thought that.
Yeah, he's gone to Australia. Okay.
Yeah, Brisbane Roar in Australia is going down that. I mean, it's not a bad place to sort of down tools once the career's
down tools. Look, let me chuck out. So when he came to Poole Town, he was working for his dad and his granddad. I understand that he was paid £300 a week as a brickie. Brickie. At Poole Town, we paid him £80 a week and £10 a goal. Now, he did all right with the goal bonus, of course. By the time he left us, he was on more than that, but I have no idea what he was paid at Burnley. But £80 a week at Poole Town to what would have been thousands of pounds per week at Burnley and at QPR.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I do, money's such a big thing in football now. It's like when you speak to some of the, when I've spoken to some of the former Burnley players like George Garni and Roger Ela, David Ayres, they're looking at football now thinking, God, I'd love to be a footballer, and but in my heyday now, because I'd sort of well, let's just say we see 19-year-olds at the likes of Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City that are now on a minimum of 20 grand a week, and they're all swanning around in fancy cars and holidays to these mega expensive destinations, and that's before they've even kicked a first team football.
One of the most famous players that ever played for Poole Town before my time was Wilf Mannion, England international from the 1950s. And he saw out his playing days in the non-league at Poole Town, who were in the Southern League in those days, which was the top flight non-league. In fact, Poole sought election into the Football League on 3 occasions, unsuccessful each time. And I understand the year that Oxford were successful in getting election into the Football League, Poole Town were unsuccessful that year. I saw Wilf Mannion's contract, because that's still a document held by the club, and he was on £4 a week.
Wow.
An ex-England international. Mind you, £4 in the 1950s probably went a bit further than it does today.
Yeah.
It got you more than a litre of petrol.
Definitely. Last question I'm really going to ask you then. Obviously, you've said all good positive signs regarding Luke. Positive signs towards Oxford next season?
I would hope so. I was a bit concerned that we might lose Carl. There were some reports about him maybe being linked with other openings. That hasn't happened, and hopefully it won't happen. If we keep Carl, he hasn't finished either in his recruitment yet. So I think there'll be a few more players to come in. There'll be a few loan players, and he does well with the loans, bringing in players from Premier League clubs, young players, but good young talent. Gets them in as part of that family that we talk about. And ultimately, if those players end up getting released by their clubs and not going further, we have a good chance of then signing them. And
So you did that with Cameron Brannigan, didn't you, from Liverpool?
Yeah. Well, the word is we're probably going to lose Cameron Brannigan, and that's going to be another big loss. And I don't know where he's going to go. But once again, that's another situation that had we got up into the Championship, probably that wouldn't be the case. But a player like Cameron deserves that opportunity, and he'll go with our blessing. He's under contract. He'll go with a nice big fee as well. And I would expect that would be 3 million plus.
Oof. You'll be raking it in. Just Christ, you'll be like amongst the richest of the league by the end of this transfer window. Go on then. Give us your prediction. Where do you see Oxford finishing this season? Do you think you can get that promotion?
We start. I absolutely believe playoffs. I don't believe we're going to be winning the league. There's a lot of other big clubs in that league. We got Derby County, which is a complete unknown. Are they going to turn things around, or are they going to continue on the slide? Unknown. We've got Sheffield Wednesday in there. The Charlton Athletic will come good one of these seasons. Portsmouth. There's a bunch of contenders. We got Peterborough come down who've yo-yoed a little bit.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough. Playoffs, I would hope. And if we do make the playoffs 3 times in 4 seasons, I would hope 3rd time lucky. So there's my prediction. A celebration at Wembley in the playoffs at the end of the season.
I'm sure you take that and snap anybody's hand off right now. As Carl says, they're so excited for the new season. I'm sure we all are. It's a daunting time when the season's out. You don't know what to do with yourself. As I said, we'd have had a World Cup to be watching if, again, as we've already said, money talks in football.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have heard about the new striker that we put a bid in. Not much really, just that there's a bid gone in, and we're also after one of his teammates as well, a midfielder. So, as I said, there's going to be lots of reports coming out about Vincent Kompanys and players from the Jupiler League in Belgium. It's almost written. If it's not a Man City player, it's somebody from the Belgian league. So, it's going to be, as we've said, it's silly season. It's silly season. You're going to be linked with every Tom, Dick and Harry. Mark, thank you very, very much for giving us an insight to Luke, giving us an insight to obviously Charlie Austin, who, became a club legend at the Turf. Wish we could have had him in the Premier League as well. Hopefully we'll get that with Luke. If not, as I say, you can have him back on loan by all means. But thank you for your insight. Thank you for giving us, your thoughts on everything. And good luck for next season.
No, you too. We wish Luke all the best. Obviously, if he does well for you, those sell-on clauses that we don't know about could potentially result in a bonus if there's promotion to the Premier League.
Yeah.
Obviously, if he does depart Burnley for a figure more than you've paid for us, then there's another bite at the cherry there. So, in cases like that, we always look and hope that players go on to bigger and better things. I mean, sadly, one of our players is Rothwell, just signed for AFC Bournemouth, so we'll be coming back down playing along the road from me. But he let his contract run down, and there was no sell-on clause for Oxford. So there would have been, had he still been under contract. So there you go, back to that point again.
That's it. The football merry-go-round, the transfer merry-go-round, it happens every year. People take days off work on transfer deadline day in hope for excitement. I've done it too many times with Burnley, and I don't know why. It was just deadline day is just.
I don't know why.
Deadline day to us is just another day.
It all happens at midnight. Why take a day off?
I know. But yeah, thanks again. I do hope either one or two things happens. That if Oxford don't get promoted, Chris at least gets you that pint.
I'll find him. I'll track him down. He's only a few miles away from me, even though he's Leicester and I'm Oxford. We're only a few miles apart.
Oh, not wrong with that. Not wrong with that. Thanks again, Mark, for coming on, and all the best for the season.
Yeah, cheers. You too. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye. So, there we have it. Luke Mcnally obviously is a Burnley player. A couple of comments coming in. Dan Mack says there, much love for Oxford. Yeah, see, Mark, all this love coming for Oxford. It's nice to see. Charlie is in as well. Obviously, being a Man City fan, Burnley have become his B team, obviously. It probably explains the claret collar on the new kit and on the sleeves at Manchester. But respect for both clubs. Burnley with Vinny as manager, and Oxford, we played each other in the cup and let Foden score his first goal. I don't think Oxford let him, but I don't think they'd have wanted that. And the missus coming up with big up, Dan. Yeah, cheers. Cheers, Kate. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you to everybody who's been in the chat. The missus can't, I can't get a word out of her. But as soon as I go live, that's it. Comments galore. Look forward to seeing what Burnley have to show at the start of next season. New changes, and that should be good. Yeah. So the new era, the new dawn is upon us. We have got youngsters galore coming in. Scott Twine, who I said there will be a video coming out on, and this young man, Mr. Luke Mcnally, 22-year-old Republic of Ireland defender, who Mark says will go on to bigger and better things. Fingers crossed, still in claret and blue. However, guys, if you haven't seen us on any of your social media platforms, you can like and subscribe to us right here on this YouTube channel. All you got to do is click that little button that says subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you'll be notified when we next go live. And here is where you can find the rest of our... Guys, it's been a blast. Thank you again to Mark for coming on and giving his insight to Luke Mcnally. Looks like a good little young prospect. Fingers crossed we can nurture that talent at Turf Moor. Guys, thank you for watching. We will be back. We will be doing our predictions for the Championship. We have got the shows lined up. Predictions for the Championship, the prediction home kits and away kits. We are going to be doing a show rating the kits to see what we think of them. And there's going to be some watch-alongs along the season, as well as the usual match previews. I will be back in a couple of days, if I'm not streaming FIFA, it will be with another video for you guys. Thank you very much for watching. All the best. Take care and good night.